Welcome to the Community Voice. I'm Fara Sax. Thank you for spending some time with us today out of your busy day. And we are joined by a truly distinguished guest, a Coral Gables native, a veteran to South Florida banking, and someone who's played a major role in shaping the financial future of our community. Jose E. Cueto, CEO of Grove Bank and Trust, joined me today. Jose, thank you so much for joining me today and our audience.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and join you this morning.
Well, you've spent over 3 decades in banking and serving our community so well. Now, as the CEO, a bank that's been in our community for nearly 100 years, what kind of longevity does that mean for you and for our South Florida community? And what does that mean?
To me, ultimately, I think it's perseverance. Any financial institution that's been around for 100 years is committed to the communities that it serves. It's survived the Great Depression, multiple natural disasters, the Great Financial Crisis, and has been here serving this community through thick and thin. So I think ultimately, there's a legacy and a history and a tie into our community. But I think, when I think about what the 100 years means, ultimately I always think about perseverance. Other banks have left this market, other banks have failed, other banks have been acquired. We're still here serving the same communities we've been serving for 100 years. So I think that to me is the most critical takeaway, is the perseverance piece.
And what does that mean? Because 3 decades in the banking world and to today, how has it changed? How has it stayed the same? How do you see banking as a whole?
I think it's changed in that, technology has evolved at a velocity that has generated a lot of the interactions between ourselves and our clients. How it hasn't changed is the commitment of community banks to serve the communities that they are, part of and have the DNA kind of ingrained. And I think it still hasn't changed in that there's still a lot of value in having a personal relationship with your bank, with your banker, with those who manage a lot of your finances or, opportunities that you may be contemplating. So I think it's remained the same in the human element, right? I think that the boutique servicing our clients, I always take great pride in being able to make a difference in someone's life, and that hasn't changed. I think the way that clients interact with banks has changed, and certainly the number of community banks in this country has changed. Just to give you context, over the last 10 years, we've lost 1,500 community banks in this country. So that's about 30 a state. Small banks are the economic drivers of our local communities. And I think that that's a critically important element in their staying power and in our ability to continue to serve the communities.
We're talking about, you said 1,500. Now, were they acquired? Were they closed? What happened?
It's generally a combination. I would tell you that the majority of that is merger and acquisition activity. There's also been bank failures. In those numbers were some of the savings and loans banks that failed. There was a good number that failed, but the vast majority is mergers and acquisitions where banks have been acquired.
So talk to me about the mission of Grove Bank. Talk about that.
Our mission is to really serve our communities and to add value to the relationships that we establish with our clients. I think it's to advise them and to bring, a depth of knowledge to assist them in making decisions at every single part of their financial journey, whether it's a college graduate, whether it's a seasoned investor, whether it's someone in their retirement years. I think that there is value in knowledge. And I think that, a tailored approach to how you look at your clients and how you look at their journey, financially speaking, and the ability to look at it under the lens of a relationship, not a transaction. I think that those are critically important parts of our mission. And it's the culture that we've built at the bank. Everything's about our clients and our ability to serve their clients and to advise them. and to provide the banking services that they'll need on a personal level, on a business level, whether they're a small business, a developer, someone, approaching retirement. Grove Bank and Trust can help you from a very young age until we sell your estate. So it's basically a cradle to the grave type of relationship that we can provide.
I like that, cradle to the grave. Talk about that. Talk about that longevity that you have with your clients, whether in each season of their life or in their business life as well.
That's a great question. So a couple of times a week, I'll run into a client and I'll introduce myself at the bank, and they'll tell me, well, yes, I've been a client of this bank 50 years, and my mother banked here and my grandmother banked here. So to me, that was something that really, stood out to me when I started having initial dialogue with some of our clients. That kind of gave context to the 100-year history and the longevity of this bank, that there are, a lot of people will tell you the first bank account I ever had was at Coconut Grove Bank. Today we're Grove Bank and Trust, but even inside my own family, I know that many of the first banking relationships were with who is today Grove Bank and Trust. So I think it permeates, every single day. There is a story of someone who has had a long-standing history with our bank and in the community. So, that was one of my early biggest takeaways coming from other banks that maybe weren't as seasoned and didn't have the history as deep into this community as Grove Bank and Trust. It was really something that I really love about going to work, is some of these great stories that I get to hear every day.
And it's amazing because you too are homegrown. You are a local boy. Tell me a little bit about growing up in Miami and how that helps you with the culture of who you're working with and who you're helping in our communing.
Yeah, that's a great question. So
I think I'm full of them today. That's 2 for 2.
You are. Those are some really good questions. Being homegrown and being, a product of, Cuban parents who emigrated to this country at a very young age. I think ultimately what it did to me was instill in me a deep sense of hard work. You go to work every day, nothing is earned. And that's the example that I had. So for me, in my own personal journey, I always kind of looked at, those who kind of laid the foundation for us to be able to do what we do. And then it was a blessing because I was born in this country, but I'm also very cognizant of my heritage. And it's an incredibly unique mix that works extremely well in a community as diverse as Miami and South Florida in particular. So to see it go from, a not sleepy town, but let's call it a small city, in the 60s to starting to have connections with the rest of the world in the 70s to what it is today is truly something that has been amazing to witness as a banker and in the financial services industry. It's been, it's a very different city than the city that I grew up in, and some things are great and some things I miss about a smaller city with some, there's things about Miami that were very special that have changed. I think changed for the better, but it has changed nonetheless. But being homegrown means if you give me an address, I know exactly where that address is. If you speak to me about a business that was here 50 years ago, I know that business. If you talk to me about who is in our community making an impact, I know those people. So it's, it allows me to do my job better because I have such a deep understanding of the communities that we serve because I grew up in those communities.
Absolutely. You're very woven into the fabric of our communities.
Absolutely.
And how do we bring that local feeling, and how does Grove Bank and Trust bring that homegrown feeling, understanding the culture into its day-to-day operations?
I mean, I think, we partner with a lot of non-for-profits. We partner with a lot of schools. We're very...
Well, I'm gonna gloat for you on your behalf because I got the list. United Way, Sebastian Strong, Orange Bowl Committee, Center for Financial Training, Cuban Banking Study Group, Habitat for Humanity, Miami Lighthouse for the Blind. This is amazing stuff. Coral Gables Community Foundation, Chapman Partnership, Jackson Health Foundation, Gable Stage, American Cancer Society, Nicholas Children, Nationwide Youth Outreach and Athletics. That's no shabby list to help in the community.
And that's just a small representation of a much bigger list.
What does that mean? What does that mean to you to work with these nonprofits? And how does the bank intersect and work with all of them to help them?
I think...
And why is it important that is the most...
I think it's important to give back to the communities that you serve. I think that is a part of the responsibility of what a community bank is. It's really to partner with the communities that it serves. I think that is critically important. And you can pick thousands of non-for-profits, but they all have a common mission is to help, to create awareness, to provide resources. And I feel that, community banks are a huge player in giving back to our communities. They've always been. They're from here. They understand the importance of these communities. They understand the importance of being involved in making change or helping create awareness or raising money or all of those, because ultimately it benefits the very communities that we serve. And we want to see those communities thrive. So it's a very natural progression to partner with those in whatever capacity we're capable. We have, some of us sit on many of these boards. Some of us have been chairs of some of these non-for-profits. Some of us go out and do beach cleanups or do Habitat for Humanity and build houses or go to hospitals and speak to pediatric cancer patients. I think it's part of our mission.
Absolutely. And it's wonderful to be involved with a community. Are you okay?
I'm perfect. Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. That's yeah. So moving forward, tell me one story that comes up for these non-for-profits that really touched your heart or your team's heart that you've heard secondhand.
I mean, I will tell you that, I have hundreds of those stories, but if it's one that has touched my heart is just, pediatric cancer, how tough that is, on a young person, how tough it is on their family, and the stories of the kids that you meet that unfortunately don't make it. That's a sobering wake-up call, as a parent, as a person who values family, that's a tough thing. It's tough subject matter. And, that there's all of those stories. I mean, there's literacy projects, whether it's the ability to read or the ability to understand financial literacy, the ability to advise and give some hope to those who maybe don't have hope or don't have direction or don't have the ability to make certain decisions. So, all of those. I think anytime you see suffering in the communities that you either grew up in or well, you want to be part of what change looks like. That's the only way that we break certain cycles in our communities.
Let's talk about financial literacy. I think it's very important as young people to really understand. And how does the bank bring those tools to a community?
So we partner with different communities, and then we organize financial literacy events. We're actually doing one right now in Miami Gardens. We partnered with a group called Nationwide, who is really about educating, protecting, and putting youth in paths of success. So we recently had a team from Grove Bank and Trust go out and provide, they were there for a couple of hours with young kids to teach them about saving, what debt looks like, why debt maybe doesn't make sense, how to plan responsibly for the future. And then we do something similar with the adults in the community who will have more sophisticated questions about home ownership, different options to maximize what they're making, questions about lending products that maybe make sense to them, a better understanding of how the banking system works, what debt looks like, why it doesn't make sense. So it's just, it's two different audiences. There's the youth, and then there's the adults in lots of communities in South Florida where we've gone out and provided financial literacy. So I think it positions, and what you do is you provide knowledge to allow them to make better decisions, not only today, but as they kind of look forward.
Absolutely. And then we're talking about the local decision-making impact for your clients and for the community. Tell me a little bit about that.
I mean, our board of directors and our executive management team are all in Miami. So as decisions are made, those decisions are made by individuals who understand this market. It's not, these decisions aren't being made in other cities where decision makers for other financial institutions may be housed. They're made locally. So I think that's advantageous to a client, because as you work your way through risks and through how you mitigate those risks or how you may structure a product or a loan, certainly understanding the market that you are trying to structure a product around is going to be completely beneficial to the client, because we have a much better understanding of what that risk looks like. So we can make decisions based on our knowledge of risk, not on parameters that maybe are for a whole series of products, but don't take into account the community that you're serving. So.
Absolutely. And you have 5 locations.
We have 5 locations.
And South Miami and all the regentrification that's happening there. Talk a little bit about that and how meaningful that is for your location, especially in South Miami.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at, there's 3 projects, I think, really that kind of jump out at me. I think the Line, which I think is an important one, I think is the whole, City Hall, Government Center, library kind of redevelopment. That's a very, very big project. I like that project a lot because it does come with, I believe it's a 10% workforce housing component, which is actually very nice. As you know, I don't have to tell you that living in South Florida has become inhibitively expensive for many.
No, really?
No.
Really? Affordable housing? That's
in case you
subject.
didn't know, I just wanted to provide you with an update. I think that's an exciting project. I think Avalon, which is where the old Winn-Dixie site was, I think that's another.
Did that just go up overnight?
It feels like these projects, because you drive by them, and it's hard to kind of perceive how much time has gone by. They go up fairly quickly. And then certainly Sunset Place. I think that, from the Bakery Center days to then Sunset Place to this new project, I think you're bringing on about 2,500 residential units to the community with mixed use. There's retail, there's hotel. I know that there's going to be theater and art supposedly in the new Sunset Place. So I think, it's a balance. I think you want to balance growth with quality of life. I think you want to be respectful of those who have lived in the South Miami community for a long time, but you're also excited about, the ability to create, a different looking landscape. I think critically always, respecting what has always been the DNA of South Miami, right? A lot of the small businesses, what has made it such an amazing city. I think that they're going to do a good job of balancing that and creating something that's sustainable on a go-forward basis. So.
And you're right there in your front window. You can see all of this happening.
We're seeing it all.
And how does that transformation affect your bank, and how are you involved with this transformation?
Well, I think it's an opportunity. We do a lot of work with developers, and we do a lot of work with small business owners. So for us, it's making sure that the community understands who we are, what our mission is, and the fact that we have been in this community for a very, very, very long period of time. So, as new citizens will be moving into the city of South Miami, I think it's an opportunity for us to showcase who Grove Bank and Trust is and, put on display what we can provide, not only our clients, but the South Miami community as a whole. So I think it's exciting. We're going to have to figure out some infrastructure issues in this city because, the density has gone up significantly, and South Miami was already pretty dense with, very interesting traffic patterns at times. So I'm curious to see, how this affects that area, basically that Sunset and 57th Avenue area, and then maybe slightly east to US 1. But I think it's exciting. And I think you've seen a lot of that transformation in other cities, Coral Gables, Coconut Grove. Coconut Grove really being city of Miami. It's a place where people want to come to live.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the developers. Let's talk about how the young people from cradle to, what'd you call it? Cradle to
the grave.
But let's talk about the cradle. Let's talk about the developers and how Grove Bank and Trust services them and the services that you offer competitively as a local bank, understanding your community and what the needs are.
So we work with most of the major developers in South Florida. So we work with big developers, small developers, and basically everything in between. We financed, a lot of multifamily and other types of projects in South Florida. And I would tell you, it all goes back to many of these developers we've known for decades. Where they're building, we understand. We can value and appreciate location, experience, knowledge of this market. So it's a natural partnership. I think we pride ourselves on our ability to execute well as a bank. And I think that's always something that's beneficial, for the recipient or a borrower or a client who's looking for some type of banking service. I think, expertise matters. And I think that when you look at Grove Bank and Trust, we are a bank that can provide not only advice, but expertise in that advice to help our clients make better decisions.
Beautiful. And every day out of lending, how do you help the local businesses, and maybe that are not the developers, that are smaller mom and pops, that are in your market that you would honor to have work with you?
I think it goes to expertise. I think for smaller businesses, we offer lending solutions, but then we also offer solutions for how to best manage their money, whether it's treasury management, cash management, whether it's merchant services. And we try to take a holistic look and provide advice that helps them focus on running their businesses and not have to worry about the financial aspects, because they know they have a trusted partner in Grove Bank and Trust that is going to assist them and, maybe take some of the worry or concern about what banking should look like and some of the complexities so that they can really focus. That's a big challenge for the small business owner. They have to do a lot of things. But by partnering with the right bank, they can focus on what they do best, which is whatever business they have selected or whatever business they are running. If they can dedicate the majority of their time to that business and not have to worry about some of these other elements, I think we've done our job. And if we can maximize the efficiency of what that looks like for them, I think it's even better. It's a win-win.
I'm going to make you blush again. Lender of the Year, the Horizon Award, and as a Powerful Leader Award. Mm-hmm. What does that mean for you and your team?
For me, it's a pretty simple. I think I've done what God has asked me to do. And what I do, I honor him. And if these awards come as a byproduct of me working for a higher mission, then so be it. I don't, they are what they are. I think that I do what I do for reasons beyond awards. I'm always flattered to receive them, but it's not really my personal mission. I think my personal mission is to do what I can do to the best of my ability to honor, the blessings that I've received, and knowing that these are gifts from above.
And that was my question. You answered my question. That was a really good answer. Now is my chance to say that's a really good answer versus it's a really good question. Thank you, because I got to know a little bit more of what's important to you and your mission with moving forward. All right, to sum up.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit in a few words what you would like our community to know, our audience, that we might not have touched in this interview yet.
That we're here. We're here to help you in any way that we can. We want to build your trust with us. And, we are here to provide you with advice that, hopefully can position you personally, professionally, or your business in a direction that's in line with your objectives. I think we do that in a concierge way. We do it in a manner of respect. We do it as a team, or as we meet with business owners or clients, we have oftentimes representatives of many areas of the bank, and we do it with a smile on our face because we love what we do. I would tell you that's a pretty easy way to put it. And if you want personalized, homegrown service, this is a place for you. That's what we provide. Our products are the same as every other bank. What we do is we add value. We provide personalized boutique service, and we very much value relationships.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
You have 5 locations: South Miami, Coconut Grove, Coral Gables, Aventura, Palmetto Bay.
Yes.
For all your banking needs.
For all our banking
Big,
needs.
small, personal, business.
And we follow our clients outside of Miami. So, the world, and kind of going back to one of your earlier questions, technology has changed what you do in banking. It's much broader than 5 branches. We've got clients that we followed throughout the state. Sometimes we follow them out of the state. So generally there's a connection back to South Florida, but we're not limited to South Florida in the scope of what we can do.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate this time, and I appreciate you stopping in today to watching Jose Cueto joining me today from Grove Bank and Trust. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other and have a wonderful day.